I think we're live. Hooray.
We are.
Okay, now I just need to figure out all of my settings and things like that. So let's have a look on my channel and just see if it's actually worked. I don't think anyone's here yet, so we're okay.
No, but
oh no,
people
look,
can
one
go-
person is
there is a
here.
person
Hooray!
here.
That's always
And
good.
people can go backwards to
Yeah,
view the
they can
start
go back.
as well.
That's fine.
So
Okay, let's just have a
We've
look
got two.
on my channel. Here we are. Now I'm just going to copy out the link, and then
oh, hello chat. Hello,
I'll be
Luca.
able to actually get people.
First person in the chat.
Hello! Yay, we've got people. Can everyone hear us? Because I've not tried live streaming with this microphone in this house, so hopefully everyone can hear us. I'm just going to do some tweeting and let people know we're live.
Yeah, we're getting good news on the hearing front.
Excellent,
So,
that's good. Okay, perfect.
happy days.
Right, just tweet out this link.
So I'll get on.
Do you want to tweet
I'll
it out from
retweet
yours?
it from mine.
How is everyone on this Saturday? We're on Saturday, aren't we? So
Yeah,
how is
Saturday
everyone?
evening.
How's everyone's evenings? What are you all up to besides being on YouTube?
if it's evening there, of course.
Oh yeah, it could not be evening. What time is it where everyone is? I'm sure Europe's ahead of us, so they're probably later. But it's not too late here. It's sort of 20 to 7 in the evening. You'll have to be in charge of looking at the chat for me and making sure I
can look
I
after
look
the
at
chat.
everyone.
I can care for the chat.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce yourself as well?
I can. I've got a few people to
Now that
introduce
there's
myself.
actually people
so,
here.
I'm Steve. I only really got into reading fantasy and sci-fi since meeting Kitty G. Most of what I read before that was mostly non-fiction, autobiographies, that sort of thing. But after being introduced to fantasy and sci-fi, it's definitely a genre I'm really interested in now. So I've been reading a few big series so far.
A few, yeah.
So Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series I've just finished off. I'm reading through Josiah Bancroft's series, which is ongoing, which I'm really liking. So, and I've just started on Peter B. Brett's series as well, The Demon Cycle. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the right
I'm still
name.
trying to remember all the series names. There's so many. It's just trying to keep track of them all. There's so many big series. So got a lot of catching up to do, mainly.
Yep. Lots to read. So Steve and I are together, obviously, if you guys didn't realise.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, so he's my partner. We live together. So this is technically our study that we're in at the moment. But I've kind of taken it over as a book room because, you know, I need somewhere to store all my books.
I had to sacrifice my gaming space a bit.
Slightly. I mean, we've got a lot of gaming in the other rooms.
True.
It's not too much of a hardship.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, good shout on Sending Ascends there, Luca. I definitely recommend it. We both recommend it. We both love it. So the trilogy, well, I say trilogy, it's a trilogy so far. So I believe there is
5, maybe
4 or 5.
Something like that.
And the story just gets better from there. So absolutely recommend that.
Yeah, it's a good one. You've not read the 3rd one yet, though.
I'm working through it at the moment. So about getting towards halfway through. So definitely rate it.
Ooh. City of Blades. See, I haven't read that one yet. Hero of Ages. You just read that one?
Just finished that one. Love it.
Seems good. Excellent. Right, I think I've managed to tweet out all my stuff and everything now. So hopefully people will join us.
The updates.
So fingers crossed we can start. So we wanted to celebrate because it's our first. Well, it's my first live show I've done kind of on my own, and also the first in the book club series. So I don't know how many of you guys are actually in the book club. It's a book club I started very recently. I started it on Patreon. So if you guys want to join and have input into kind of choosing the books and helping me come up with more ideas, not just for the book club, but in general, sort of for the channel, then you're more than welcome to go over. I think there's a link in the description. Hopefully, if I've set up the technology right. I'm glad that this is working, by the way, because I was a little bit stressed about doing it myself. I've not done it for a long time. I set one up many years ago, but not for a long time. So I'm glad it's working. And apologies about my mess of books, which is not very great over here. These are all the ones I recently read but haven't got around to reviewing, so you can see a sneak peek of what will be coming up soon on the channel. But yeah, we're celebrating because it's our first one. So cheers.
Cheers.
Let's get started. So I don't know how many of you are in the book club, so I'll just tell you a little bit. In January, we voted to read this book, which is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. Now, I've never read any Asimov before this. You hadn't either.
Nope.
But of course, Foundation and this whole series is one that is cited a lot by many different people. Everyone seems to rave about it. And it was kind of like a classic. So people were always going on at me, sort of saying, why haven't you read Asimov yet? And I was like, well, I just haven't got around to him. And then I think it was actually you when we were in the bookshop.
Yeah, because I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you picked it up and you wanted to read it. So I bought it so we could. And we've just had it on our shelves. So I sort of suggested a couple different books to everyone to see what everyone wanted to read. And this is the one they chose. So I'm going to start off by doing non-spoilery stuff, but later on we will get into spoilers. So I'll let you guys know when that's going to happen. So if you haven't read it, don't worry, you can be here at the start. But we will go into spoilers later on and I'll sort of tell you guys, you know, go away if you don't want to be spoiled or something like that. Okay? So, Steve, you read the book. Do you want to give us a kind of brief synopsis of what happened without going into spoilers?
A synopsis of what happened. Now,
yes.
Trying to do this without spoilers is a challenge and a half.
We'll just do a vague overview for people who maybe haven't actually read it yet or don't really know much about it.
An overview of the book itself is the development of the Encyclopedia... put my teeth in. Encyclopedia Galactica.
Yeah.
Which is meant to record all of human history in terms of space exploration,
just
colonization.
Science in general, isn't it, mainly?
So the history of the human race.
Yeah.
Before the potential loss of it in the future. Nobody knows when that may be, whether it will come across. So...
Yeah, so it focuses on an organization who are called Foundation, which is obviously the namesake of the book, set up by one man. And this organization of the people who are kind of compiling this encyclopedia, keeping all this knowledge, and it skips through time. So there's multiple parts in the book. I think we have 5 different parts of the book. And I read it today, so it's a lot fresher in my mind than it is in yours.
Yeah, I finished reading it about a week ago, so maybe it's a bit fuzzy on details because I don't tend to retain as much of a book's detail as you.
I mean, nor do I, but I made notes for this because I wanted to be prepared.
Yeah, I probably should have done that, admittedly, but it's the first one I can get away with it.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll see. But anyway, so it focuses on Foundation and the civilization that's kind of built up around this organization. The main character at the start is a man who is coming to work for the guy who is in charge of this encyclopedia, and kind of getting everyone together to create it. He's a mathematician, and we follow him as he goes to a new planet where he meets the guy who's in charge of this, and then the story goes from there. So I don't want to go too much into the details of it, spoiler-wise, so we'll do an overview of our thoughts, but then we'll go deeper into the spoilers after that. So what did you think of the book? Give us a general overview of what you thought.
So my thoughts of the book was that it was very much, for want of a better word, a foundation for a series.
Yes, that's accurate.
They were setting up a lot of different characters, backgrounds, scenarios, and so on to build upon for the remainder of the series. Yeah. So it was going into stories of particular characters. It was going into particular environments, places, just building that really and setting it in stone, ready for the rest.
Yeah. Can you stop spinning? You drive me mad.
I'm just bobbing around.
You're going to make me want to start doing it, and then we'll both look like Wallies. So, yeah. So you enjoyed it or not?
yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I'll definitely want to read the remainder of the series for sure, because it's got a lot of interesting characters and stories, and it's interesting to see where the story goes from here, really.
So I think this is the first one in a trilogy, maybe. I'm not entirely certain how many there are. There might even be 5 or something. I thought it would tell me in here, but it doesn't seem to. Oh no, actually there's loads. I completely lied, because there's a prelude and a foreword. Or is that in this book?
Is that 2 prequels potentially?
Potentially 2 prequels, and then 5 books total for the series from the look of it. So this is quite a short book, and I enjoyed it as well. I actually think I might have enjoyed it slightly more than you from the sounds of it. But that might just be because I'm quite used to reading science fiction and fantasy, and I've kind of got a better knowledge overall of what to expect with an older science fiction. So this one was published originally, I looked this up earlier, I think it was the 50s. Yeah. So it was first published in 1951, and then it's been reproduced loads of times since then. And I definitely enjoyed this book. I think because it wasn't what I expected it to be throughout the whole thing. From the start, I was interested, and then it kept changing pace. It kept changing characters, and it kept changing location, and sort of how developed the world and the society we were following was changing all the time. So I think that really helped kind of keep your interest, but also it left me slightly cold with regard to characters, but I'll go into that a bit more later. The world itself, or worlds we should say, because it is a galaxy, we have quite a few worlds that we sort of focus on, but initially there's one called, I'm gonna have to look at my notes now so that I get it right, but I've got some extensive notes.
I would try to remember, but I'll make a fool of myself doing so.
I mean, even though I've got it written down, I'm probably going to pronounce it differently to everyone else.
Trantor, was it?
Yeah, Trantor is the first planet where we follow our main character in the beginning, and he meets a guy called Harry Seldon there, who is the guy who's in charge of Foundation. And then we later on go to a planet called Terminus, which is where Foundation gets set up. So I like the fact that we had a lot of different worlds we were following, and it wasn't just those 2. Those are the sort of base worlds, but we also have other worlds where we see them interacting with Terminus, and we see other planets kind of getting involved with the politics of Terminus as well. So there's a lot of different cultures and societies, I suppose, that we get glimpses of. We don't go too deep into it, do we?
No,
so
it is just sort of a snapshot, and you get sort of a small overview of that particular scenario, the particular environments, the people, the cultures. And then when you're starting to get sort of involved with that, it's like, oh, no, we've moved on to this one now.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It can be a bit jarring.
My criticism of the book would be that although it's a short book, and I guess it wants to cover a lot of time in a short amount of pages, I never felt fully connected to any of the characters except the first one. I was kind of getting there, and then that ended. The later characters, I think I maybe had in the back of my head that it was going to skip on from them. So I didn't want to get attached. I was like, oh, well, this will just be for this part. And it was exactly that. It was just for that part. So characterization, although I think was interesting for each character and each one felt unique, I don't think I connected on a personal level with them. And that's something I personally really enjoy in books, sort of the connection with the characters. So it would have been good to have a little bit more of that, maybe. But I know this is a classic, and that's kind of the style they were going for back then, is shorter, more about a message and an idea. What do you think the sort of idea of this, or the message of this, was, if you had to give a brief idea, insight? And anyone who's read it in the comments, please let me know your thoughts on this one as well, because it would be great to have ideas. Obviously, try and avoid spoilers if you can in the comments, but let me know, or until we get to the spoilery bit.
What we need is one of those big signs that we can just hold up to say spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That's what we need for future ones, for sure.
Okay.
But in terms of
noted.
Yeah, but in terms of the book itself and the message it's sort of portraying is definitely sort of the preservation and how important history is as well, and the preservation of that, and preservation of knowledge that we have, and making sure we don't lose it and make the same mistakes again. Yeah,
I think there's an undertone of trying to preserve the past, but also trying to ensure that technology and forward thinking doesn't get lost and stagnate, which it does slightly in the book because of various things. And then also the idea of kind of you don't have to be violent to win everything. That seems to be a big message in the book as well, which I didn't necessarily expect. So I liked that side of things quite a lot.
There wasn't much sort of conflict at all in the book that much. There
which
may have been a couple of scenes,
me.
But really not a lot.
Yeah, it surprised me actually, because I don't know, I kind of associate sci-fi with big epic space battles or something like that.
I was about to say the same.
And I mean, that's mainly space operas. That's more that side of things. And hard SF to an extent is more science-y. I don't know. I would maybe put this... I don't know what I would put this in. Just classic SF. It's sort of exploring different areas, but it doesn't really focus on the characters or on the worlds or anything. It does a bit of everything. Classic SF, I guess. It's not really hard SF by any means. It's super easy, I think, to read, and I wouldn't say it's a difficult read by any means. You don't have to have an understanding of science even to get it, because it's all just about preserving things. And I mean, the only thing they really go into a little bit is sort of a made-up concept of psychohistory and atomic weaponry. They talk about that a lot as well.
And just atomic things in general, so like utilities and
just using atomic technology, I suppose. Yeah. So yeah, it was interesting, definitely, and I enjoyed it for the most part. So you've already said you would go on and read sort of the later ones. Yeah, I think I would too. When we buy them, we will do that. But yeah, we'll have to pick up the rest. Let's go a little bit deeper into some of the things. So this is where spoilers might start happening. So just if you're not interested in watching for the spoilers, then maybe click out of this and come back when you've watched it. I will say now that the book for February has already been chosen for the book club, and that is Dawn by Octavia Butler. So if any of you are interested in joining in for February, I've put the link to the Patreon below, and you can sign up and you can read the book, and we'll be doing another live show sometime end of February, start of March, to talk about that one. So if you're interested, then please feel free to join us. I would love that. And again, I've been posting loads on Patreon too. So if you're interested in just sort of following along and getting input into what else goes on the channel, that would be great. Just go have a look. So yeah, otherwise, if you don't mind being spoiled because you don't want to read it, or you read it so long ago you can't remember anything, stay here and we'll tell you a little bit more about it. So let's get started on talking about this one. So I've done some notes and I've divided them into 4 sections. I did writing style, plot, world building, and characters, because I thought those were the easiest things to talk about. So for writing style, what did you think before I go into what I thought of it?
I found it, in terms of the writing style, I found it very much... I don't know how to describe writing style particularly well myself, but I would say
dry, fast-paced, fun. What would you...
It was very information heavy, I found, to begin with.
Yeah.
There was a lot being chucked at you from the get-go. A lot of it was stuff you could relate to, but then when they started, because they talk about psychohistory very early on in the story, I was like, okay, they're talking about this. What is it? And it took them a while to actually get around to explaining what the concept is, what it's about. So even though that's still an early stage of the book, you hear the word, you read the word rather, but it just takes a few more pages or a bit of time in the book before you get told what it's about.
So I think I agree with that for the most part. Information was heavy at the start, but that's usually the case with any fantasy or science fiction, to be honest, just to set the scene, really. I think that for me, I found it a little bit detached. I've already mentioned this slightly, but because we are so removed from the characters for a lot of the book, I felt like I was quite detached from them, and I didn't feel a real connection or a real deep understanding of who they were and what their motivations were. So I just would have liked a bit more of that. I also think that the characters and the planets are shown quite quickly. So we do get straight into the action, like you said. I didn't actually think there was an awful lot of setup before things started happening. I just think the things took a while to be explained.
Yeah.
Like you say. So from the start, we're already doing something with our character. It's not like describing just a landscape for ages. It is a character who's in space. He's on a spaceship and he's going to a planet to work for another guy called Henry Seldon. He doesn't really know an awful lot about him. He's just sort of published some articles, and this man who we're following called Gal. I'm not going to be great at the pronunciation of these, but he's called Gal, I think. He is our main character at the start. He's on a spaceship. He's flying to the planet of Trantor, where he's going to meet Harry Seldon and work for him as a mathematician to hopefully kind of compile this encyclopedia and further the knowledge and work on psychohistory. I feel like I'm not saying psychohistory right, but I think it's just because it's a made-up word.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, it reads like that, so I'd imagine
like
that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah. So anyway, I think I wrote at the beginning in my notes, "fast-moving potentially?" ? Because I thought from the start this is going to be one of those books that goes through a lot in a short amount of pages, which is what it did.
Yeah.
So moving on to plot. The plot, as I say, it starts off with Gal coming to this planet, and immediately when he gets there we get quite a lot of world building and description, so I'll talk about that in a minute. But in terms of what happens, he ends up talking to Harry Seldon quite early on in the story, and Harry kind of comes and explains to him all of the things he doesn't know because they were not published in articles. So Gal gets a conversation with a guy at the top of this tower. When he immediately arrives there, he feels quite claustrophobic, so he goes up to a tower to sort of look out at the sky, and there's a man there who talks to him and says, you know, look out for this guy, Harry Seldon. He's not necessarily what you think he is if you're an outsider coming into the planet. He's a troublemaker. So Harry Seldon is already got this reputation on the planet he's on, but to everyone who's sort of in the provincial planets, he doesn't have that reputation. He's not been allowed to publish outside of the planet and tell his ideas. So Harry Seldon meets up with Gal, and they end up having a conversation about the imminent destruction of the Empire, which is kind of run from the planet of Trantor.
Yeah. Sort of the capital of the Empire, isn't it? So...
Yeah, very much. And they have this conversation, and soon after that, he ends up getting arrested. So it's quite a dramatic beginning to the book. He ends up getting arrested, as does Harry. They have to go through a case and a trial, and then they end up sort of deciding that they're going to set up Terminus, this planet which is basically at the very edge of the galaxy from everything. It's kind of the last one in the galaxy. And they're going to set up Foundation, which is their society, there to continue their work on the encyclopedia. The aim that Harry Seldon says is he wants to not stop the catastrophe that is coming. He doesn't think that's possible. He just thinks that he can kind of negate some of the effects, the after effects. He can make it a less of a time span, which is in complete disarray and carnage, basically. So that's what he's kind of talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, he's trying to sort of use prediction theory quite a bit to predict
psychohistory, I suppose.
Psychohistory is sort of the prediction of big events that are going to happen in the future and taking particular paths through those events to reduce the impact of them, so the impact of the Empire's collapse is lessened, really.
Yeah. You're doing it again. You're going to keep
I'm going to keep spinning around. I am.
Oh, dear. Sorry if Steve's spinning is really distracting for all of you. Oh, dear. So that is kind of what I had down for, I guess, the plot in general.
In terms of plot, just coming on to more points about the plot and how it goes from the point of psychohistory and the building of Trantor going to Terminus, and then it goes further on from there as well.
Yeah.
So you've got the time jumps further into the future where they started building the encyclopedia.
Yeah, so the first time jump goes from part 1 to part 2 is a 50-year gap.
Yeah.
So we're following the inception of foundation in part 1, and then we follow 50 years after what's happened. So obviously by this time Harry Seldon is long dead, as is our first main character, presumably, although he never really gets mentioned again.
No.
Which I found a little odd.
Yeah, it was, we sort of lost him as soon as that part.
Yeah, I would have kind of wanted to know a little bit more about him.
Yeah.
And what happens to him, because I think there's probably a lot more to say about him. I liked him, that's why I'm a little bit bitter.
Yeah, he was a good character,
vanished.
But it was just, I imagine that was the last. Yeah.
He was a plot device, wasn't he? He was there so that he could kind of incite this trial and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so we have 50 years later, we have our first new section. And then we have, in that section, we see sort of from 50 years up to 30 years after that. So 80 years total since it started. And then we skip forward and we see how things have gone in another 75 years, I think it is, after that.
Yeah.
And then
so it covers a lot of time over the course of the book. So
yeah, we end up with a couple hundred
from the start
years,
to the end,
sort of into the future, don't we? I put down something else about the end of part 3. I've just put, at the end of part 3, we were reminded that there is another foundation at the other end of the galaxy.
Oh yeah, that was a bit of a curveball.
What have they been working on and why?
Because as far as we knew, they'd only set up the one on Terminus.
Well, no, they do mention the idea of setting up 2 in the very first part. But I'd completely forgotten about it by the time we get to part 3. And then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about those guys. What are they doing? So... And then, do we actually hear any more from them?
No.
No.
I imagine we're probably going to hear more about them in the next book.
Set up for the next book. Yeah. So I've just put, like,
definitely,
what the hell in there, like, question mark after question mark. Like, what were they doing? Why are they mentioned? What?
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone knows more about that, then let me know.
Here's a plot device I set up earlier.
Exactly. Is it set up for later books, or was it just something he never followed through on? I don't know. So I put that in my plot section. Let's go on to talk a little bit more about the world building.
Yeah.
Because I think this is one of the things that worked really well for me in part 1, particularly. So the description of Trantor, as we are going towards it, as our main character, Gal, I really liked. I thought that was really interesting. So I could picture it in my head. So it talks about him being on this ship, and he can see out and he can see everything, and he's approaching the planet of Trantor. And then when he gets close to it and they're sort of starting to land, they go, oh no, don't worry, like, you need to go back to your room or whatever. You can't look out and you can't see it from afar because you'll get blinded. And all he really knows is that it's kind of encased in metal, and a lot of it is not really very green or similar to what we would think of for a planet. It's mostly, well, no, it says it's completely, like, the whole of the planet is completely populated, isn't it?
So one giant city over
the entire
planet's surface.
Yeah, and everyone who works on it
around the top of that.
Yeah, and everyone who works on it is working for the Empire. Like, they are the people who run everything. Yeah, they run everything. They are all sort of administration, I suppose, and science and everything you would need to run an empire, I guess. But that's what they do. They're all sort of there to sit down and just tell you about, you know, what's going on. And the actual emperor lives on Trantor as well. Yeah. And he has the only spot of sort of green natural land on the whole planet is belonging to the emperor. It mentions that he has some gardens there which have natural soil. So already when I was reading the first couple of pages, I was like, wow, what would this look like? This crazy planet that's encased in metal, everything's metal,
a lot of grey,
everyone lives sort of under a metal dome maybe, or a metal landscape, and you can see out and you can see all this crazy technology that they've got. But actually, as it goes on, it describes Trantor as being a very weak planet. It's a planet that can't provide for itself.
Relies a lot on imports and trade. So because of the fact that it's been made into a full urban sphere, if you like, it can't cultivate anything, can't grow anything, farms, no real natural resources. So it's heavily reliant on items that are coming in. And then that goes into further detail as well in regards to if those trade links were severed in any way, then the planet would be stuffed.
Toast.
Really.
Yeah, exactly. They would be in severe problems.
Part of what Selden is predicting.
Yeah. So that was all really interesting. And then when he gets off of the ship and he's actually on the planet, it talks about this massive, like humongous metal wall. And he gets into what I assume is some sort of taxi. And he gets into this and he just says, here's my hotel, take me there. And this taxi heads towards this big metal wall and it has to go into one of the holes. Like there's hundreds of holes on this wall that take you on different routes around this crazy big city.
Yeah.
And this taxi has to go into one of them. And again, that was something I thought was really well described. Like I could picture this massive wall of metal where there's all these cars whizzing around or car-like things, ships maybe, whizzing around and going into this metal wall and exploring around. But what we do find out from Gull, who's a character who's grown up on a typical world, which has like the sun and crops and so on, he's quite claustrophobic from this metal place.
It's very imposing.
He doesn't like it and he wants to go up and see the planet from afar or see the sun. He doesn't want to feel
just
trapped.
Something natural.
Yeah,
because
something
it's very artificial, the planet itself.
So he goes up to this observation tower and has a look, and that's one of the only places you can see the sun. And whilst he wants to book this, he talks to the guy at the hotel desk and he's like, oh, you really want to go up and see the sun? Like, no one who's born here does that. We don't care about it. They go into
how they take up kids when they're young. They take them up there when they're 5
years old.
And they take them up there and they're so terrified they don't ever want to go up again.
Yeah, because it's open space and they've never had that. They've grown up in cubicles and they've grown up in buildings and they just don't have like perspective on what it's like to live in a crazy big open world. So they're very bemused and terrified and they have to go up once a year by law, I think it is. They make them go up once a year to see it and remember there is an outside. But it sounds as though if you get onto this planet, most of the time you don't come off of it. Yeah. It's like
you're there for
the
life.
place that you are. But I suppose if you were working in a system and you were in the capital, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to think that
it'll be all right.
You would just stay there and you would just serve the emperor and you would just do your job 9 to 5 or whatever it is, I suppose.
It'd be quite a good life, I imagine you'd have.
Yeah,
because it'd be mostly office jobs. Then you'd just be doing your job. I imagine you'd go to a home and so on. So I imagine they've got ways to get around the lack of natural sunlight and things like that, but that doesn't really get explained a lot. That's one of the things they don't really capture is, even though it's encased, where does the light come from?
Well, I presume electricity.
They
don't go into
they don't go into those sort of details. So
the other thing they
said,
non-essential. Well, I guess we just fill in the blanks sometimes with that sort of thing, don't we?
Just left to your imagination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing is that Trantor is built 9/10 underground. That's the thing they mention a lot.
That's the other thing, yeah.
It is very much like he goes up to this observation tower and it takes ages and ages to get up there. And then he comes down
this far up.
And this guy's like, oh, it's only a mile up. And he's like, what? But it took ages. And
because of the type of elevator, he wasn't prepared for it as well. So he was like holding on with his feet to be able. And it was a bit of a rough ride because he wasn't prepared for it at all. Yeah.
Okay, characters then, unless you have anything else to mention on the world building.
The other bit about world building, going into the other sections, because we get shown a lot of other worlds throughout, because Terminus isn't on its own in terms of proximity. There are other worlds around it.
Terminus, I don't feel like we had an awful lot of world building on.
Terminus itself
was political then, wasn't it?
Yeah, all we really heard about from Terminus was it doesn't really have much in the way of resource itself.
Yeah, it is a bland planet. It has very few resources.
The only thing it does have compared to its neighbours is atomic energy.
Yeah.
And just atomic technology.
Yeah.
Which we since discovered that over the progression, once we've had the 50-year time skip, that atomic energy is already lost.
Yeah.
So it's lost to its neighbours, and the neighbours, in terms of the political aspect, start seeing Terminus's atomic energy as a way of gaining power over their neighbours as well.
Yeah, but it's not a world descriptor, is it? It doesn't
No.
tell you an awful lot about the actual world.
You
of
just know it doesn't have
Terminus.
metals. That's all we know.
Well, we know it hasn't got metals or food or anything, really. It kind of relies on its neighbours to trade scientific knowledge to an extent.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you want to shimmy in a little bit more? You're like off to the side.
I'm just chilling over here.
You're shimmying around.
Anyway, so then we go on to other planets as well. So
again, I feel like there's not an
but
awful
not
lot
as
of
much
world description on any of those other
there
planets.
was a stage later on in the book which goes into a desert planet.
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
was,
a mention,
but
isn't it? It doesn't
yeah,
go into
it doesn't
lifestyle.
describe. Yeah, it doesn't describe the planet in itself, but yeah, just casually trashing the place here.
Just chucking things on the floor.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, so
that's
you don't
kind
get
of
much
what I had for
other than
building.
Trantor and Terminus. You don't get much world building.
No.
It just briefly mentions the planets themselves while you're there, the key features about them.
Yeah.
That's about it. So
okay, characters then.
Characters.
Let's go on to the characters. So, first characters are obviously Garl and Henry Selden. They're the ones we've most talked about. Garl is a mathematician. He wants to work with Harry. He's a big admirer of him, mainly for the psychohistory stuff.
Yes,
that's the main thing he's really interested in.
Yes, because Garl was a student.
Yeah,
he was a student, and as part of his studies or coming out of his studies, that was where he was going. He was going to work with Selden. So
yeah, he applied to work for him, and he was like super happy to get the job and everything. Yeah.
So those two characters we get a lot of detail of, and I think we get a lot of detail on Selden itself because he's sort of key to everything, really. He gets mentioned a lot in the later stages of the book. Yeah,
I think that Garl, as a character to me, he seemed very naive.
Yes.
As an outsider to the world, he was really naive. He was asking for a lawyer when this case came up against him, and they were like, well, okay, but I mean,
it's not going to help you.
Probably not going to help you. And he asked to go see the Emperor and have an interview with him, and they were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Don't be silly. So he seems quite naive as an outsider, and he's also naive of Harry's real work, I think.
Yes.
Harry, on the other hand, seems completely confident in what he knows.
Yeah.
He is a really confident character. He believes he has analysed the future with psychohistory stuff, and he believes that he knows what's coming. It's inevitable. There is nothing anyone can do to stop the catastrophe of Empire falling.
Or change his mind in that regard.
No, exactly. And he's very competent, and he believes in himself a lot because he knows he's the only person, or one of the only people, who can fix this. And he actually has, it's like 100,000 or something stupid volunteers working for him.
Yeah.
Or people working for him. They're probably not volunteers. But
yeah, I think the other thing as well with Garl coming in, not knowing a lot about Selden, is what you mentioned earlier in regard to Selden not being able to publish outside of Trantor.
Yeah.
Because Garl hasn't been exposed to that outside of Trantor, because that's where he was, he wouldn't know.
No.
What he was getting himself into, really.
Yeah.
And then he's just dropped in right at the deep end.
Completely naive about it all, and just going
exactly.
Like, oh, okay. Guess I'm going to be working for you. I mean, he agrees with Harry, though, doesn't he?
Yes.
As soon as Harry sits down and says to him, this is what's happened, this is how long I predict we're going to have of this, and this is how I've worked it out with his maths. He doesn't go into the details of the maths, but it's like, he sort of says, oh, I've done this, I've done that, and you can work out the maths because you know it. And he's like, oh yeah, I agree. Okay, you're right. Interesting to me that although he was a student before, Garl, he knows he's going to work for Harry Selden on this planet that is the center of the Empire. He has a specialty in psychohistory.
Yep.
Why did he not think of this? Why has no one else thought of this? That's a question I had that was a slight...
Yeah. Because if he knew the calculations already...
I don't think he knew them, but I think the fact that he hadn't considered them, even though he was going to work there and he was going to be a key player in this organization. I mean, yes, he may not have known an awful lot about what they do realistically, but I still think if he's got some sort of degree in this, or he's got knowledge of this subject, why did he not necessarily look into it beforehand? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a quibble I had. But I think they're very interesting characters because both of them have completely different attributes and they feel like very independent characters of one another.
I think the thing with those characters as well is that we get the most detail.
Yeah,
say for one
definitely.
other character later on, we get the most detail about these two.
Mm-hmm.
There is one other character further on, which I imagine we'll get to
next
in a bit. Well, we can go to
the
next.
Characters I had on my list were Piren and Hardin. Do you remember them?
Yes, I remember them. I think we had a lot of detail on them,
two.
but they're not the ones. The one I'm thinking of.
Okay, interesting.
But these two, we got a lot of detail because they did a lot of the whole politics stuff.
I'm going to put my arm on your chair so you can't swing around.
It's soothing.
So, Piren and Hardin, do you remember who they are?
Yes. So they were...
Testing your knowledge now.
You really are. I believe they were heading sort of at the lead of Terminus in terms of government, weren't they?
Yeah, so Hardin is the newly elected mayor of Terminus. He's actually the first mayor they've ever had. Bear in mind, this is 50 years on from the establishment of Foundation on Terminus. So 50 years have gone by since Harry and Gull. We're now set up on Terminus. We've been ordered to go there by the government, and that's actually something that Harry engineered, kind of. Bit loosely, not really given us much detail on how he engineered that, but he's like, I knew this would happen. Anyway, we end up on Terminus, and once we get there, we follow Piren and Hardin. And Hardin is the newly elected mayor. Piren is the head. I've written it down what he is because his job title confused me slightly. He is the chairman of the board of trustees, who are the people in charge of running the encyclopedia preparation and compiling and all that sort of
one
stuff.
Of the key mottos of the foundation is the encyclopedia above all else.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now they're getting to the point at this stage at the start of part 2 where that motto is good and all, but you need to consider other factors as well in the world. You can't just say that and just dismiss everything else because things are happening in the world that are out of your control. So, or
at least on
you can't ignore everything
that are your neighbours. So we have right from the start we have a tension between these two characters. So Hardin is a character who is sort of born and raised on Terminus. He is a character who has grown up there. He's part of the general populace. And he's managed to get elected as a mayor because this is some new idea that's been brought in. And up until now, it was always the board of trustees who kind of ran things with Piren at the head of it. They were very much, everyone works on the encyclopedia. Everyone does this all the time. That's what we do. We're scientists focused on bringing together all of the knowledge and compiling this encyclopedia, which will be published once everything goes terribly wrong, and it will keep the knowledge of the past generations.
Yes.
When we pick up the story again, we know that the neighbours, there are 4 neighbouring planets. They're called the 4 kingdoms in the book, and they have declared themselves independent of Empire by this point. So they actually don't really know too much about these 4 kingdoms at the point we pick up.
Yeah, we don't get much introduction to all of them.
There's one
we get
main
detailed
one.
With one, which we go into in terms of the plot and the story, and that follows that.
And then
we get a bit of detail on one of the others, but not really that much.
Not much other detail, to be honest. So we just know that there are 4 threats to the kingdom, to Terminus.
Yes.
From these kingdoms, and they are each independent new kingdoms that have been established. They've got a new ruler. They're independent of the Empire. The Empire supposedly is funding the work that Foundation are doing. They are a state-funded organization who are set up on this planet, and supposedly the Empire should look out for them. However, they know that the Empire is going to collapse, and it seems as though we're hitting the point at this point of the book where that's starting to happen because these 4 kingdoms have broken away. They become
a bit of a disregard for the Empire.
They've got complete disregard, really, haven't they? They don't really care about.
It's like if Terminus and these characters say, "Oh, the Empire's going to back us up," and so on.
They're not really sure.
Not interested at all.
So, Piren is the head of the board of trustees. He's very much old school mindset. He's like, the encyclopedia comes first. No one's going to attack us. They know we're doing good work. They know that we're great. We're just compiling knowledge. Why would they come to our planet? However, they have the atomic stuff.
And the location.
And a location, yeah, they also...
in terms of these 4 kingdoms, Terminus's location works well as a sort of strategic base for
military
invasion
base.
And military action.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
That's the other reason why this particular planet, which is the one we follow, which is Anacreon, I believe it's called.
I was going to look it up, but you've got it. Yeah,
I've got
Anacreon.
it.
Or Anacreon, as I called it.
Was it?
Who knows?
Who knows? Who knows the secret? Listen to the audiobook for that one.
Yeah.
So that's the main reason they're interested, and we followed that planet a lot over the course of part 2.
Yeah. So Hardin is very much of the opposite mind to Perrin. He's like, right, we need a plan. We need some way to fight back or control these neighboring kingdoms. No one on the Board of Trustees is willing to listen to him. Now, the other interesting thing, which is more of a plot thing that is happening around this point, is that 50 years have gone by, and this is the point where Harry Seldon has left them a message in a vault.
Yep.
Now, they don't know what this message is, and they've got no idea if it's going to help them or not, but the Board of Trustees is arguing that they should wait until this message comes through to see what Harry was going to say and find out from him, what to do. They think he will have used psychohistory to go forward in time, think about what the consequences of his actions would be, and tell them what to do, as kind of like a cult leader or a figure that they look up to. He's very much become an icon that they reference a lot and that they all kind of really respect and regard by this point.
I would say almost like a god.
Basically like a god, yeah, essentially.
Which is another point that they come into later in the book, a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of religion.
They
cover
yeah, exactly.
My glass is empty, that'll be why.
You better fill it up.
Anyway, so yeah. That's another point that they cover in terms of using religion. And the main thing that Hardin wants to do is he sees violence as something to completely avoid. He uses any means necessary to avoid violence to resolve conflict.
Yeah, so we pick up the sort of story when the tensions are rising, and we see characters from this other world, Anacreon, whatever it's called, coming over, and they're sort of saying, if you don't give us land on your planet as a military base,
we'll take it.
We're going to take it. You haven't got the powers that we've got. You haven't got the technology, the resources, any of that sort of stuff.
So because you've been working on the encyclopedia, you've got nothing to stop us. So we'll just take it anyway.
So can you fill mine up?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you. So yeah, they are very much kind of doing their own thing. They're like, well, if you don't give it to us, we're going to take it. So they need to do something. The Board of Trustees and the mayor need to come to some sort of resolution. And ultimately, when Harry's vault opens, that's kind of the catalyst for them to actually do something, isn't it? Harry says to them all, you all thought you were just here to compile an encyclopedia. Actually,
surprise!
You weren't. You were here to start what is going to become the Second Empire, the new empire. And you have been cut off from civilization. You are away from technology. You have had to come up with your own means of doing things. And you are in a very important position where you can control your destiny. Is basically what he says.
Because he predicted that they would lose communication because the Empire's communication network broke down on the far reaches of the galaxy. And through his message, you can see that he's predicted that correctly. That's happened.
Yeah.
So it's right. More, right. Basically, his theories have worked. Right.
And because he sort of has predicted this crisis, they later become known as the Seldon crises.
Yeah.
Crises. So this is the first crisis they encounter. And he says in his first message, you're going to encounter more. I've got more messages for you in the future, but this is your first one.
And nobody knows when these messages
You don't know when these are going to come up. They'll come up at the times you need it based on what I've worked out. But what you need to do now is you need a plan, basically.
Yeah.
So then the Board of Trustees start listening to Hardin, the mayor, and we then skip forward another 30 years into the future, and we see that Hardin has been the mayor for 30 years. He's managed to keep the peace with these kingdoms by
just non-violent, and mainly the religion, really. He's basically created a religion around things a bit. He sort of engineered it.
Yeah.
So that the and he's also controlled resources. Whenever one of the neighbors has said, we need this to be able to do X, Y, and Z, he's gone, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
So what he's done is he's kind of sold them out almost.
Yeah.
He's sold out the resources of Terminus. They have nothing there. The only thing they have to offer is their knowledge of the past. And the Acranians, they have come and they've set up a military base on the planet. And they do that without, Terminus really agreeing. So Terminus go to the other 3 kingdoms and they're like, right, well, you've set up on our planet, we really don't want you here, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a shady deal with the other guys. And they go there and they do that, and they make a deal with the others saying, like, if you guys can team up and you can get them off our planet, we'll give you whatever you like. We'll give you the resources, we'll give you materials, we'll give you technology. Political
games mainly,
very much
political. So he's using the other planets against each other.
He's playing them off against one another without them all knowing. And then I think later on they do pick up
they
to the fact
let
that
on to that, especially in terms of forcing Anacreon off the planet, because eventually Anacreon had to retreat their base and just completely abandon it and withdraw. Yeah. And later on in the story, when Hardin is on Anacreon, because he goes there at some point later in the story, it's obvious that they knew this is what had happened.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
At the point after moving beyond the 30-year time skip, so this is 80 years from the start of the story, we know that Anacreon knew this is what Hardin had done.
I think of the 4 kingdoms, it's made out that Anacreon is the one that's the most important. Like they're the ones who have the most resources themselves, so they have more technology to begin with, but they're actually, they need help still from Terminus.
Yeah.
And then
they like to throw their weight around.
They do like to throw their weight around. And they get to the point where they've got so much from Terminus that they think they can probably do without them, basically.
And they want to try and take them over.
They want to take them over, and then they would have more resources and more knowledge and so on. So they decide that they're going to attack Terminus. And at the time they do this, they've got Hardin. They've got the same letter. Why do authors do this? They put the same letters at the start.
They remember them all, but then confuse them all.
Oh, it's just confusing. Anyway, Hardin is currently on Anacreon.
Yep.
Whilst they decide that they're going to wage war.
So there's a big celebration. So in the lead up to this, there was a old Empire Navy ship that had been discovered, just abandoned, destroyed, but still repairable. So Terminus knew that they had the technology to be able to repair it and bring it back into working order. Anacreon wanted this. So Terminus were like, sure, we'll help you build it up. You can have it.
Yeah.
Because if they said no,
wasn't it?
If they said no, Anacreon would be like, okay, all right, they want it for themselves. They're going to fight us.
Yeah.
So, and part of that was they then had this ship in working order in time for the coronation of the Holy King.
Yeah, on
and
Anacreon.
This was part of the religious building as well, because they see it like always. The king was picked by God and so on, and then there's this dodgy uncle who secretly wants the throne for himself.
Always a dodgy uncle in fantasy and sci-fi.
Yeah, he wants the throne for himself. He's already killed the father.
Yeah,
he wants to get rid of the son, heir to the throne, who's going to get made king that day.
Yeah.
But I nearly did what you just did and called him Harry. See, that's your influence. Hardin actually wants to interfere with this a little bit. So he goes over to Anacreon because he wants to.
He's invited as a guest. Well,
he's invited as a guest, but he also wants to seize an opportunity to stir things up a little bit.
He knows that they're planning something, so he knows he wouldn't have been invited if they weren't planning something, and he's got suspicions. So he's been working in secret to talk to the people who are fixing up the ship whilst they're doing it, and basically make sure that they are kind of adding a few little modifications that are going to help Terminus rather than help the Anacreons.
Exactly.
So that's what he does. He gets taken hostage by the creepy uncle. I forget his name, but he's a creep, basically.
I can't remember his name.
It's like Weenus or something. Something like that. It is.
It
like
is
that,
something
yeah.
like that, but it
I
sounds...
can't remember, but it's something like that. No, that's
Alrighty
fine,
then.
That's fine. That's what he's called.
It is what he's called.
We're gonna call him Weenus. Anyway, he's basically a horrible guy, and he doesn't want his nephew to rule. He's probably gonna plot against him, and he goes over there. Hardin. Well, yeah, we know he's plotting against him, but anyway, he kind of says that to him as well.
Yeah, he does as well.
Don't go out on the hunt. Never know what's gonna happen.
Like
Bit of an evil villain there for a second, wasn't he? Yeah, that's
then he
quite
gets
funny.
completely flawed.
Anyway, Hardin is an expert basically at what he's doing. He's been playing them off for 30 years. He knows how to tactfully kind of control
he's been
things.
sneaking technology in that he actually has control over. We find out.
So they have this technology, this atomic technology that they've worked on. They know about this. They've been feeding it out to others. And they have something, it's called some sort of ray. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Can you? It's like an Electra ray or something. Something like that.
Oh, it's the ultra wave, wasn't it?
Ultra wave, something like that. And basically this technology can completely freeze other technology. Or at least that's what I understood from it.
So it's like a remote controller just overrides stuff.
It basically breaks everything or like stops everything from working. It jams it all up when it's activated. So by this point, Hardin has created this priestly order, and it's on all 4 of the kingdoms. So the priests, they will liaise with Terminus. Terminus is seen as this godlike planet where they're kind of giving out all these resources.
They worship the foundation.
They worship the foundation. They worship the priests. The priests preach about this amazing technology that's enhanced so many things. And, the priests are everywhere. Like on these planets, they are everywhere. And they have managed to basically take over everything without all of the rulers knowing.
Yeah.
People have much more respect for the priesthood than they do for the king or the rulers and things like that. So when the priests get told about this plan to blow up Terminus, which is basically their god, their heaven, their place that they all revere, they're like, hell no.
Nope.
We're not going to allow that.
Yeah.
So they get involved. And one of the priests is on the ship with the brother of the Weenus uncle.
Yeah,
it's the brother of him, I think, isn't it? It's some relation of his who he trusts.
Yeah.
Who's on the plane, not the plane, the ship. The alcohol is going to my brain now.
I thought you were about to call the ship the alcohol.
No, I can't remember the name of the ship. I'm not sure it has a name.
It was named after the uncle himself.
Oh God, the Weenus. It's not Weenus, is it? Anyway.
Well, we can find the page and have a look if you really want to know.
No, I don't know. Anyway. So he goes after him, and the priest is on the ship with him, and the priest basically goes, well, right, it's time. It's 12 o'clock. So I have a feeling that this is going to be about the time where you probably need a bit of a kick up the backside to tell you that actually we're in control. Yeah. And he is acting under Harry's orders, and he goes, right, let's turn on this amazing ultra ray or whatever it is.
I think the point was that Hardin was under hostage at this time.
Yeah, he is. He's being kept hostage by Weenus.
And then, but then actually it just completely flips around the other way because Hardin has the ultra wave controller.
Yeah.
He activates it on the ship. The ship shuts down everything. Everyone goes into a panic. And there you go.
Now, did you see this coming?
Part of me thought he was going to pull something because the fact that he just walked straight in completely calmly, I was like, he's got a plan. He's got to have some sort of plan to be able to get out of this, surely. Because it would be too obvious for them to just go, oh, we'll just kill him off.
Yeah. It's interesting because they kind of create this religion to mask science. What they do is science has failed the empire, basically. That's how people see it anyway, isn't it? Like they see the empire as having collapsed and they don't know what to do about it, but they don't trust the science anymore.
Because of it.
So what they do is Hardin comes up with this great idea to create this religion where people are worshipping the priests and the technology but it is based on mathematics, it's based on science, it's
Yeah.
based on all of these ideas that people were like, oh no, that's terrible, that ruined our lives. But actually he's rebranded, basically.
Pretty much.
Rebranded science to a religion. And all of these priests and people are acting under his command. So
it's a way to get that knowledge back out,
Yeah.
but in a way that the people will accept.
Exactly. And these people who've gone through this terrible collapse of their empire, they've
Yeah.
seen something they respect completely destroyed, and they've now got new rulers, and they don't necessarily like the way these rulers are acting, but they're just going with it because why would you not? It's interesting, I think, definitely. So yeah, Hardin basically defeats them all by being a badass. That's what I would say.
Just being very clever.
In terms of characterization, he's definitely a character I liked a lot
Yeah.
as well. I didn't care so much for Puren because I think he's a little bit boring and
He's a bit
stuck in
irrelevant.
his ways.
Yeah,
And
he's
he
a bit
becomes
like...
completely irrelevant
Yes.
after that, doesn't he? There's
In the
actually
lead up to
some
that
other
section, he's very
characters.
irrelevant.
There's
There are
actually
other
some
characters that are brought
who
up in that.
are the revolutionaries. Is that who you're thinking of?
Mm.
The ones who are like trying to overthrow Hardin at the time.
They don't see him as doing things the right way, and they think, oh, we can just solve these problems with this.
They think violence is probably the way forward, and they're
Mm.
sort of advocating for violence when it gets to this point, and they want to
just fight back
against these four kingdoms. But Hardin knows they don't really have the resources. Even 80 years on, they don't have the resources on the planet itself. They still need to trade with other people
Exactly.
to get everything they need. So they need to keep the communication with these planets open,
Mm.
but they don't want to be threatened by them. They don't want to be governed by them. They have their own agenda. So he does that in a very good way. Okay, so the next characters are the traders, Ponyet and Gurov. Do you
Yeah,
remember them?
I liked it when we got to sort of the traders, and this is sort of the
Mm.
lead up into a bigger arc later on.
So this is, I
So,
don't know how
building
many
the
years
trader
later,
story.
do you?
No, it didn't really specify,
No, I
but
don't think it's specified.
the
at
trader
all.
lead up with this, and then further on in the story, which is one of my more interesting parts of the story I found towards the end.
I found it the opposite way round.
Did you?
That's probably because you like sci-fi more and I like fantasy more. And I think the first 3 sections are quite political, fantasy based more than sci-fi.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's like fantasy in space. And then the the 4th and 5th sections, I think, are more space based and more sciencey based.
Yeah, because you could say this book is SFF. It's not one or the other. It's the combination of them both. So, but
I would say so.
from the cover, you wouldn't get that. You'd just see it and think it's sci-fi. So,
Yeah. Well, it's always been branded as science fiction. But
classic
actually,
sci-fi, but actually it has elements of both.
yeah, it is. It is both.
But yeah, so the traders,
Mm.
this is where we get introduced to the desert planet, which I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I can't remember the
So
name. But
it's one where they're basically not allowed to trade on, but they go and try it anyway.
is it Coralline or something like that?
Unsure. But they basically just go in there, and the reason is that there's someone held hostage,
Mm-hmm.
and this
Yeah.
person isn't just a trader,
That's Gurov who's
Yeah.
held hostage, and then
but he's not just a trader. He's like he's not an ambassador
he's
for
a
the foundation,
secret
but
agent,
he's,
isn't he, or something?
yeah,
for
something
the
like that.
foundation. He's like working for them on the sly.
Yeah. So he's in prison on that planet basically because that planet forbids trading as part of its law. They don't like traders coming there at all.
It's called Ascone, this planet where he's imprisoned.
Pretty close.
Found
there.
it in the
Uh,
what?
your guess was pretty close. That's what I was saying.
No, mine was the Krullian or whatever.
That
in
was
the
later
final
on. That was
part.
later on.
Mm.
So they completely prohibit trading and traders. They just forbid them by law. And this is why Grov has been held in prison.
Yeah.
So this is also why the other character, whatever his name is.
Penyats or something, isn't it? Ponyats.
Thank you.
I'll find his name. Actually,
Anyway.
I've got it on my notes. Hang on.
So this is why he's gone there. So he's been nominated to go there and try and rescue him and bail him out.
Ponyet. That's what these called.
Cool.
They're not
So-
very memorable, are they, the names?
They're a bit,
Bit abstract.
yeah, they are a bit abstract and hard to remember.
Yeah.
So because they're sort of names that are definitely science fiction-y.
Yeah.
Stereotypically science fiction-y, I would say. But he goes there to bail him out.
Yeah.
But he bails him out in quite a novel way in terms of it is also another political thing
Mm.
in that he's going in and he knows there's sort of, I can't remember this bit too clearly. That's my issue. I know he sneaks trading and get blackmails.
Yeah,
Does
so
a lot
he
of blackmail.
goes into the
Is that an apprentice? Is it
planet, and
apprentice?
he ends up getting sort of arrested essentially by
He
the
gets arrested
people
himself.
who patrol on the outside. Like they see a trade ship, they arrest it.
Yeah.
Basically,
Like,
they don't
come
allow
over
trade. So he gets arrested as well, but he manages to talk his way out of it because the ruler of the planet, he's called like the Grand Master or something like that.
Mm.
He is very interested in gold. Gold is the currency that they trade with.
Yeah.
Gold is the thing they desire above everything. That's the one thing that he thinks, oh, actually, they might trade with me for this.
Yeah.
They don't want technology. They don't want any of that stuff that Foundation
This is what
for.
when we start to learn what the Empire, in terms of currency, what they use. And I know a lot of it is sort of iron, and they tend to use iron that could be smelted into other things. There's also
metals, lots of metals.
It's metals, and also there was some talk of, was it credits or was I thinking of something else?
I'm not sure on that.
I was thinking of something else then. Okay, so it is mostly iron.
It's mostly metals, but I mean, it seems like Foundation have managed to take over a lot of planets and trade with a lot of planets by this point, but their main sources of trading are still the four kingdoms that surround them, but they still have access to a lot of other places. They haven't managed to completely get their influence over everything yet. They're still in the early phases of building up this new empire, which is their secret goal. But what they're trying to do is expand their reach. So this trader has been sent there to try and gain trade with Ascone, but of course he's been captured, and this other trader ends up going to try and rescue him, and that's when this new trader Ponyet decides he needs to come up with a way to give them gold. Gold is the one thing that they want from him,
and he does something very clever as well to do that.
What does he do?
Well, he makes a little machine with atomic energy, which is another thing they dismiss. So they don't like atomic energy either.
No.
And his trade ship is full of atomic gadgets. So they're little things that can use atomic energy to do whatever you want, really. So I can't remember the character he's talking to who convinces to take this machine, but at first he presents it in front of everyone. You're like, right, this machine will change your life. It will transform iron to gold.
Yes.
Puts iron in, hoping
it will work.
It will work. Just hoping within every inch of his life that it works, and it works. It transforms the iron into gold. Yeah. So he's like, here you go. It's some gold.
Yeah.
Freshly made from iron, and you couldn't tell it was iron before. Even down to the atomic level, it's gold through and through.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know where it came from. So the Grandmaster's impressed. He's like, yes, this is brilliant. This is exactly what we want. And from there, he comes away from that sort of public presentation, and then there's this other person, this other character.
So it's like the favourite of the Grandmaster.
Yeah.
He's the favoured.
He's seen as the potential next in line.
Essentially, he's the person who might take over when the Grandmaster dies, which it looks like might be fairly soon. But this guy doesn't have the status that is required on his planet. He's someone who's born into a family that isn't necessarily regarded as high enough blood or, noble enough. So
you've got to have particular criteria to be able to be a Grandmaster, and he is not that, even though he is the favourite.
And one of these things he lacks is wealth, which is obviously good for Ponyet, who can produce gold.
I can produce gold out of nothing.
So they make a little deal.
Yep.
Ponyet sort of talks to him. At this point, Garov, or whatever he's called, the other guy who's in prison.
Free,
he's still in prison by this point. But he ends up getting freed because they make this deal about the gold. So he gives this guy, the favourite, a machine that can transmute something into gold.
And also manages to convince him to sell it, and in terms of trading. And then he's like, hang on, if you tell anyone about this, you'll be admitting you've done trading, which is illegal on your planet. So I'd keep quiet if I were you.
It's very kind of
very political, non-violent.
It's very political, non-violent, isn't it? And I think this book really does deal with that a lot. Don't be violent. But trade and be awesome. That's kind of what they're trying to do.
Basically, use whatever means necessary before violence, and usually you'll solve all your problems through that.
So you liked these two characters best then, or
no? The next bit I found interesting because I found it got into a lot of detail, and we followed that one character a lot. And
we did.
I quite enjoyed the last section, really.
So the last section I haven't actually written any notes on because I finished it. So I can't remember his name. Can you?
I know he's called Mallow.
Mallow something, isn't he?
Well, something Mallow. I think Mallow's his surname. But
he's known as Mallow in
Yeah.
the book, so we can call him that.
And he's a senior, he's sort of a trader as well in himself and does a lot of exploring on his own.
Yeah.
He gets in a bit of a legal tangle because he's going to other planets to...
He's sent to another planet, isn't he? He's sent to another planet under the order of Foundation to find out about 30 ships, I think it is, of Foundations that have gone missing.
That's right.
These ships have gone missing and he is ordered to go there. He's actually a free trader. He doesn't necessarily work for Foundation, but he's kind of been pulled into their net.
Bit
somehow.
like a mercenary, but not.
Yeah. And he's told, go to this planet, which is called Kirill or something like that.
Yeah.
And once you're there, please check out whether they have technology that we have and whether you can find these 30 ships.
Yeah.
Those are his sort of secret missions.
It's like a little bit of spying, really.
So he has to come up with the cover story of like, why am I here? What am I doing here?
He just pretends to be a trader, mainly.
So he's a trader.
That's quite an easy disguise to do, really, as to why you'd just be a random person turning up on a random planet.
Mm-hmm.
So he turns up, and then not long after he turns up on the planet, him and his crew get set up in a base. They park up, and then all of a sudden an ambassador for the Foundation, the religious aspect, he's a priest, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's
just
a priest,
rocks up, and he's a bit delirious in his mannerisms and personality. He seems to be potentially injured. So there's a little bit of time that I can't remember too much, but then it leads into him and his crew all being surrounded, and Mallow must have known something was up in terms of this person's appearance, so promptly executes him.
Yeah.
So this is the only real bit of violence we find in the book, really.
Yeah.
Is this. And there is a reason for that we come to later in the story, because the story continues from there. He finds out the information he needs, goes on his merry way, goes to another planet later on and encounters someone. There's another character of importance that he's talking to. And then he goes to find out more information in terms of tricking people into thinking, right, I'll give you this bit of technology. And it's like shield technology, isn't it?
Yeah, he talks a guard into it, doesn't he? Yeah,
to be shown around the plants and machines that they have, so the energy generation and so on. He's like, here, take this if you show me around. So it's his way of getting in. He
basically bribes his way in.
Pretty much.
So he ends up on the planet and he talks to an old man when he first gets there, doesn't he?
Yes, this is the one I was trying to think of.
On the outside of civilization. He's kind of a guy who doesn't really agree with the ruling.
He used to be someone.
Yeah, so he used to be a rebel leader on this planet, basically. And now he lives on the outskirts. He doesn't really want to interact with the people who rule at the moment. He's not a fan of them. So he's quite happy to advise Mallow on what to do.
Yeah.
And he tells him, take my passport. You'll be able to get in with this. Disguise your accent because you will be recognized as an outsider. These are all the things he gives him as tips. And so Mallow is then able to go and talk to this guard who is on a plant. He's a tech guy, I think they're called.
Yeah, they're called tech guys.
And they sort of guard the technology on this planet. So he goes and talks to him and he says, I've got this technology. Shoot me. See what happens. And this guard is like, well, you are crazy because A, you're trying to bribe me, which is definitely illegal.
Yeah.
And B, you've just asked me to shoot you. Like, what are you playing at? So he does, because he's like, well, either way, it's a win-win for me. You've tried to bribe me, so I can say, well, you did that and you're going to be dead. But of course, he doesn't get shot because he has this force field, which is using atomic technology.
It's atomic technology to make a shield that just dissolves ray guns.
Yeah.
So it's ray guns the weapons of choice at this point.
And he shows off that this works, and then the guard takes it from him and he tries it out. He lowers his weapon down to like a slight burn if he gets through, which I thought was really funny. He's a weak little guard, doesn't trust the technology.
Yeah.
But he lowers it down to essentially all that would happen is a burn if it got through, and he tries it and it doesn't get through. He's like, wow, okay, yeah, I'll take this technology. Even the emperor of this planet, or the ruler of this planet, doesn't have this technology. You're going to be the only one with it. So he takes it and he sort of accepts this bribe, doesn't he? And then he shows him around the plants. And the guy, Mallow, is sort of like, what would happen if something got destroyed? Would you be able to fix it? And this guard is very cagey, isn't he? He's like, don't ask me questions. Suspicious. Don't ask me anything. He's very cagey with his responses. So Mallow's like, okay, don't worry, I won't. And he sort of backs off and ends up going back to Foundation to tell them what he's found and give his report. And that's where he gets picked up into the case.
He's on.
Isn't he?
That
planet. Exactly.
So he's on that planet and he's making a bit of a, because in the meantime, while he's doing this, he's also managed to convince someone of power. I think it was the chairman of the planet that this technology is great as well, just by pretending. And this is the only one of the first points, so just towards the end of the story, where we get introduced to female characters.
Yeah, there's none in this.
Which is basically none. None. At this point, they're basically just introducing a female character, which isn't really a character. It's just there. She's there just to demonstrate that this can be worn as jewelry, pretty much. This shield technology to be as jewelry. So that's how he sells it to the chairman. And then from that point on,
so he sets up a trade deal, basically.
Yeah, he sets up a trade deal with the chairman. He gets the
for his own benefit. That's his cover story.
Exactly. And then when he stood giving a speech to the people of the planet about the technology as well, at this point, some armed guards come and arrest him. And this is where the case starts. So he gets arrested, and at the point he gets arrested, the weapons that the guards are wearing bear the symbol of the old empire.
Yeah. The old empire that's like 100 years back that crumbled under Harry Seldon's anticipation. So
that's another clue in terms of information that he's trying to get. So he knows that the weapons they've got
going to come back in the future books.
It probably will.
A small thing that was only hinted.
It's a little detail that they only touch on and then leave. Really. So I feel like that's going to be another talking point.
It's going to be something that comes back in the later books. I feel like definitely.
So his suspicion is either the Empire's still got an influence there, or the weapons they've got just won't work anymore because they're ancient. So he gets arrested. They're going through the case, and then he goes up to take his speech, and he's like, right. So I've got a video recording of the whole event, and this is the case for him shooting I'm going to try this again from the get-go. Emissary,
yeah. I'm like, what word are you even trying to say?
The person who turned up, and at the start when he was setting up his base, the priest of the religion, and
is the religion ever named? I'm not sure it is.
I don't think it is, but it worships the Foundation. It worships the Foundation and Seldon, but it doesn't really have a name per se. And so they're like, "Oh, you've shot this priest. That means you're just that is a crime above all else. You've got to be arrested."
Yeah, they try and essentially frame him, though, don't they?
Well, no, he's done it, and they've recorded it, and they know it's happened.
But it's kind of like a setup, isn't it?
However, he's got a full recording of what went on because he knows something dodgy was going on.
Something fishy's been happening.
It was like, this can't be right. A priest turning up like this and showing up like this. So he's took a full recording. It's like, right, freeze frame, stop here, zoom in. And a bit of the sleeve, just before he got shot and put his hands up, a bit of the sleeve revealed itself, had a tattoo, KSP, which was
Krillin
Secret Police. So he was dressed up to spy on him.
Secret Police after him.
So that completely justifies his actions because technically it sounds like just murdering anyone else. That's fine. As long as it's not a priest, you do whatever you want.
Yeah. It seems as though if it's a bit bizarre, you're in problems, but otherwise you're okay.
Yeah, bang, whatever.
I mean, I guess he was justified. He was being spied on. He was, they were trying to set him up. Like they were trying to send. I
suppose.
And then it kind of ends, doesn't it?
It sort of ends after that.
Not long after
he
that.
he gets let off because of this, and then he goes on to be mayor or chairman of that planet.
Yeah, he sort of
becomes the next chairman.
It's called
because
Corel,
there's someone
that
called Sun or something. Sut. That's it.
Sut, and there is Sun and Sut.
Yeah, aren't they the same person though? Because the name gets used
so.
interchangeably, and I got very confused by that. But
I
think they refer to the same character. But the fact that they're referring to the same character with two different names where they have no explanation for where the other names come from is a little confusing. Because I know that in some stories characters get given nicknames, but there's an explanation usually surrounding when the nickname appears and why it's appeared.
Yeah.
But
no, not
here,
in this one.
It's just suddenly used, and you're like, who is this character? And I was still left baffled as to whether this is a separate character or not, usually.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I managed to make the link to think, yeah, this has got to be the same person, but is it though? You don't know.
We've gone off on a tangent here. Anyway,
a little bit.
Essentially, by the end of the book, that's everything that's happened, and then we get hints that they are still waiting for
They're waiting for the next crisis.
Because
now they've got
Harry
to the point
Seldon.
where they've had two.
Yeah.
Because they've had two speeches with the hologram, with him saying, "Oh, you've done this so far. This is what may be coming next." But I'm not going to tell you the full details.
More, hasn't he?
So you've got to wait until there's no other option. You've got to eliminate all possibilities before you've got one choice, and that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
So what people are trying to do now, because they know this happens, they're like, we want to try and predict the crises.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this could be a crisis. This could be a crisis. And
there's a lot of crisis floating around. But it kind of ends with
quite abruptly.
Just a really abrupt ending. Did you think that?
Yeah, I did. It was like,
what on earth?
Okay, then.
That's the end, really? So it just says, like, the last paragraph is, the last paragraph before this sort of epigraph is, Mallow lifted his gloomy face and exclaimed fiercely, "What business of mine is the future? No doubt Seldom has foreseen it and prepared against it. There will be other crises in time to come when money power has become dead as force as religion is now. Let my successors solve these new problems as I have solved the one of today." So Mallow's sort of giving us an final note. And then it just says, Corel. And so after 3 years of a war, which was certainly the most unfought war on record, the Republic of Corel surrendered unconditionally, and Hober Mallow took his place next to Harry Seldon and Salvador Hardin in the hearts of the people of the Foundation. So those three are kind of our main characters for the entire book, aren't they?
And also
Hardin, Harry, and
Mallow. So you've also got, throughout the book, because I know a lot of books do this, they have little quotations at the start of chapters.
Yeah, they're
and you
often
often get peppered throughout the story, which is quotations. Yeah, you get quotations from the encyclopedia. So it shows that these are what's been put in across at the end when they finish making the encyclopedia. Looking back on the events of the book, basically. So it gives you a little tidbit of like what's to come. In the chapters leading up to it, so I think that's interesting. And the interpretation of the events that have happened, the way that history is now going to see them. That's interesting. So really, it's just a case of where does the story go from here? So, what are your final thoughts on the book then? What did you think once you got to the end and you were like, right, that's it, I finished the book? What happens next? Or there's a lot of, as I said earlier on in the live stream, donkeys ago now, I said that it was quite a good foundation. Dun dun dun. Yeah, I have great jokes. Oh dear. But anyway, it's good foundation for the rest of the series. So it's done a lot of building up of many characters of the story, of what the foundation's about, and where it's going to go from here. Yeah. We still don't know a lot about the second foundation. So I can see there's some discussion about the second foundation in the comments. A couple people commented, and so now we've stopped talking about the book itself. We can have a quick note scroll through the comments and see what's been going on. So how many of these people are still watching? I hope some of them are, because we're scrolling through near the top. We got seven watching us. Hello, 7. Hello, the 7 who've survived. The loyal 7. Yeah. So we've got. So someone just said, Matt said, "You guys are awesome. BookTube tripled the amount of books I read, which is great, year, which is amazing." Yeah. So I've definitely done the same as well since meeting you. I've read really so much more. BookTube, but I don't watch YouTube. BookTube rather. I tend to stick to the gaming aspects because that's what I like. Yeah. But BookTube I only really got introduced to since I met you, and it's just so much. It's my opinion of BookTube is it's so much of a nicer place compared to the rest of YouTube.
It is.
It's a very
really
nice place.
Little community. We love.
It's a great
BookTube.
community full of great people, and I've been reading so much more as well. Like I didn't really read much at all before meeting you.
And you barely read fiction at all, did you?
No.
I mean, this is probably the first sci-fi you've read in I don't even know how long, really. You read Skyward by Sanderson.
No, I haven't.
Oh, no, you haven't read it
I haven't read that. I'm going to read it, but I haven't read that yet because...
Have you read any other sci-fi recently then?
Potentially.
I suppose that the Broken Earth series is kind of borderline, isn't it? By N.K. Jemisin, that series.
I tried to get into some other stuff as well.
So this is your first classic science fiction
proper classic book in general, because most of my books that I've read have been modern books. And a lot of the things you see in it is like, you can see that it was written years ago, especially the lack of female characters.
The lack of female characters.
But
that's bad, isn't it?
That's definitely evident of the time, because nowadays
it's bad though, guys. It's bad. Like there is literally,
and it's very stereotypical of female characters. They're very named female
characters at all. So you can't even do like that test. I forget the name of it.
They're not named, and they're very stereotypical. Like one's brought out just to try on some technology they're trying to sell. Just
but she's
not
even
jewelry.
A character. She's like some rando who gets called in.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly that. So, like you can tell because a lot of the modern books I've read have had major female characters that have strong personalities. They've been great characters, and they're not there just to satisfy a stereotype, which I think is brilliant, and we need to see more of. It's just.
I mean, this is a book of the 50s, and it's gonna not necessarily have female characters. It's written by a man. He knows about being a man, and that's what he's written. But it would have been great to see some female characters. It would have been great. They obviously were
It's nothing against the book. It's just...
just a criticism in general of that time period. I mean, there were women writing who probably only wrote females, so I'm sure that's the thing as well.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
There are so many things that could have been better in this book in terms of characters, and female characters being part of it would have been definitely one of them. Yeah. So I think for me, the biggest thing I have about this book is the ending I didn't like. I thought, what the hell? Why is it ended like that? It
was written with a series in mind. It wasn't written as the sort of book which was going to stand on its own.
But why not? Like, I want a book that will continue well, but still has a good resolution.
The sort of story that can stand on its own, that doesn't need to be a part of a trilogy. That is a good book to me. Like, the sort of book where you can read it, and even if you don't want to read the rest, you still think it's a good story. Whereas this book feels like it needs the other parts of the series to be able to pull it all together.
There's things it hints at that you're like, I want to know more, so I would read the second one. But I'm also like, but why didn't it just kind of finish some things a bit better? I would have liked a more complete story. What I feel like this is kind of five small novelettes.
I was about to say it's like a compilation of short stories a little bit.
And obviously they follow the same world, and they follow the same galaxy, and they follow the same
because
foundation.
Because of the time skips as well, that makes each story so separated that's why it even more feels like a collection of short stories.
Yeah, and I don't think it feels entirely like a collection of short stories, because there is a link between everything.
Yeah, there is but
I think because it's such a long span of time, the author has had to change things. Things would have changed in 50, 80, 100 years, whatever. Like, things will change. You'll have new characters who weren't even born when the old characters were coming up with their ideology and so on. And I think that's interesting that he's sort of sat down and he's gone, right, well, this is the mindset in part 1, but this is now the new mindset for part 2.
Yeah, as ideas and technology and just general people have evolved in society.
I'm interested, though, whether or not they're going to become this new foundation. Are they going to really, not foundation, empire, are they going to really manage to take over the world? They do not have anything on their planet. They've got nothing. Can they really maintain that trade is the best way to
They hinted at moving away from religion, because religion is going to get defeated by they mentioned a couple of other things. Nationalism was one of them.
Yeah.
Like
socialism,
nationalism,
there was a couple
which
others,
are
yeah.
in and unto themselves slightly conflicting, but
those sorts of ideas were only coming around in the 50s, weren't they? So so what Asimov is doing is like sitting down and he's sort of saying, this is the past and the future is going to be more what I'm dealing with in my day-to-day life.
Which was sort of, I want to say from a 50s perspective, that was a bit, because bear in mind the 50s, that was just coming out of 2 wars. So
that's true.
There was very much a...
That's why the atomic side is focused on a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because
that was very much the atomic age, and there was the rush for the atomic weapons. Yep, I know. I was moving
talking
stuff
to the floor.
The floor is a good friend of mine.
You weirdo.
Anyway, but
I can't edit this.
I'm fully aware of the fact. But yeah, the atomic age and how there was very much a rush for atomic weapons then in that era, and the Cold War was just starting. The focus on atomic is very interesting in terms of when it was published.
Yeah.
And especially from a Russian perspective, because he's a Russian author, isn't he?
I have no idea where he's from. Is he? I'm going to Google him.
I'm suspecting so, but I may have gone completely wrong there. And if that's the case, I apologise. But
I didn't know he was Russian.
Is he?
No, he's American.
Oh, dear.
It's like,
complete
don't
opposite.
think he's a Russian.
That was a big mistake.
Yeah, you put your foot in it there.
Anyway, that's the other world power that was focusing on atomic weapons. So,
oh no, look, you're right. He was born in Russia. There you go. You've redeemed yourself.
Hey.
Well, according to Wikipedia, anyway, we don't know how much we can trust that. He's considered one of the big 3 science fiction writers, and his Foundation series is his most famous, along with the Robot series. He wrote I, Robot. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I only know the film. I haven't seen it.
Also, Robert A. Heinlein. That's another author I need to read. Haven't read any of his. I've got one. I
was going to say I'm looking at the Masterworks.
Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Over here.
Yeah. These are the ones I've not read, and then all the ones on that shelf.
There.
Okay, I think we've covered most of it. So
yeah, we've covered most of the book. So
shall we just go on to questions?
Thoughts. Yeah, if anyone who's watching has any questions for us, in the comments, that would be pretty good in the chat.
I think we'll go for another 10.
We'll have another look. Yeah, we'll have another nose at the comments that we've had so far. So down from there, so there's a hello from Cape Town, which is pretty cool. All the way from Cape Town.
What time is it in Cape Town?
Oh, it must be late. I imagine they might have gone to bed by now.
Cape Town. Where
is it's South Africa.
Yeah.
So it's got to be close to.
Oh no, testing our geography.
It must be a +1, maybe +1 or +2.
+1, surely it's more than that.
Well, it's still
South
pretty.
Africa's like way over, isn't it?
Not that far. It may be +1 or 2. Okay, Google.
Don't you say Google. What time?
Well, it's YouTube. It's fine.
It's in South Africa. Oh, it's 10:15 now.
Oh, 2 hours.
2 hours.
I was right. So
surprising. So Harley said it's lovely to see something that is viewed as religion is actually derived from mathematics. That's
that's the main source of the religion and the beliefs and so on. It's
interesting that he kind of pulls on that, I think.
And then there was also discussion in terms of I've seen quite a bit of discussion about Sanderson.
Yeah,
let's be honest. I think that was from my discussion at the start.
Yeah. Angela said it's interesting to see how much sci-fi was created in the 50s. That's completely true.
Yeah.
I think John Wyndham, who's another author that I really like, and actually
I only discovered Wyndham recently, but you really like Wyndham's books.
1955 he was. So he was writing at the same time, John Wyndham. And I think that these 2 books, although one is more it's kind of borderline, actually. They're both a little bit in both spheres, like fantasy and sci-fi. But John Wyndham, I think his writing style is very similar to this, but it's less focused on space. It's more focused on the world and kind of fantasy aspects. So it's a bit more fantasy. But I think if you like Asimov, you would also like John Wyndham, and I've read a couple of his books now.
You're a big fan. You only discovered him recently because
I did, yeah, but I like him a lot.
You picked up one of the books, the first one, not that long ago.
It's not the first one. They're not in a series. They're just standalone.
The first one of yours that you picked up.
I read Day of the Triffids first.
Because that one's probably the most known.
Yeah, that one or the Chrysalids, I think. Those are his most famous.
Day of the Triffids is the one I've heard of, and I haven't heard of any of the others. And from my perspective, that means it's the most famous. As not much of a big reader as you.
Yeah.
So I think that's because that one's the one I've heard of more. I think that because not being in those spheres.
Yeah.
What else we got?
We got a question.
Look out for February book. What was the question?
Are you going to read the sequels?
Probably.
You see a big difference starting with the new wave in sci-fi. So that's kind of, I guess, from the thousands onwards, I would say. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I am not as knowledgeable on sci-fi as I am on fantasy. Is it when sort of computers and technology was really becoming a major aspect of our life that new wave starts, or is it before that? I don't know. Let me know. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the difference between sci-fi that's coming out nowadays and the sci-fi that we've read that's more classic is there's probably a lot more technology in these books that are coming out nowadays because we have so much more technology and people are writing about that. They're writing about new ideas that, I mean, people have written about like robots and hovercraft and things like that. But now
they're becoming more real.
They're more real. We've got them in reality. So people are often going now more into the cyber side.
Yes.
The cyber side is coming a lot more into play.
What's the word?
I don't know.
Cybernetic enhancements, things like augmentations. That's what I'm looking for. Like where you incorporate technology into your own being to enhance senses, abilities, and things like that.
I think that's becoming a lot more prevalent. And in Isaac Asimov's day, that probably wasn't even conceived. Like the idea of atomic was big. Yeah. Now that's nothing.
Now it's about implementing technology into your own body.
Stuff. You know, we've seen atomic bombs, we've seen atomic technology. We know that's the thing we can do. So now it's like robots. They're still kind of being developed.
Yeah, a lot of robot technology is
viruses. That's something that's becoming a lot more prevalent as well.
Yeah, like genetic
viruses,
and also genetic engineering. That's another
genetic
thing.
engineering is something, splicing and all that.
Oh,
I find genetic engineering.
New
really
wave started in the 60s. Literary values.
Completely wrong. I am. Oh well.
So there you go.
It's the 60s when computers and stuff were starting. I don't know.
I'd say it's more towards the 80s.
When we
70s,
recognize
80s.
A computer.
Yeah, that was sort of when it sort of started getting, the technology started to get prevalent, is when you started to get the original computers like the Apple II and things like that.
Ooh,
or even before
Apple
that.
II.
Yeah.
I'm filming this on my iMac, so we've upgraded a few since then, haven't we?
Yeah, and meanwhile mine just sat broken by a power cut.
It's okay. Yeah, we had a power cut the other day. Steve's very upset his computer's broken.
I need a new graphics card. That was a sad time.
But anyway, do you know what that means? That means you can sit down and read books all the time because you haven't got a computer.
True.
So, you know, it's good.
There is
if anyone has any suggestions of sci-fi books that involve gaming, let Steve know because he's
not
a big
Ready
fan.
Player One because I've already read it.
He has read Ready Player One. But anything
else? I read the book and then promptly watched the film. And for anyone here who's read both the book and watched the film, I'm interested to see your opinions as well because I have quite a few opinions. Because
I have opinions.
I'm a person. Mainly because it deviated quite a bit.
Yeah.
It deviated quite a lot.
Sorry about that, headphone users. That was really loud. That was loud for us as well. That was Steve dropping a...
that was the coaster being stuck to the bottom of the bottle.
Just give it all to me.
No, I want some. God, calm down.
I feel like we're hitting the end of this live stream really well.
Potentially.
Once we finish the bottle of Prosecco, that's when the live stream's over.
Probably correct. But it does upset me when films deviate from books quite a bit. I can see why they do it because books can have quite a lot of detail and the film can't fit all of that into a couple of hours.
I think it's especially hard with sci-fi and fantasy
because
to
there's
do,
so much building worlds, characters.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much to do in terms of CGI and design. There's nothing in there. I don't know what you're trying to get out of that bottle. I've finished it.
I'm outraged.
I think I've only got as much as you.
So, there's more comments. They're not mucking us. That's all right then.
Look, we've got Neuromancer. You should read this one, apparently.
Should I?
Well, that's what they're recommending, Neuromancer.
I thought these were all paperback.
No, I've got one hardback. Neuromancer's in hardback. I don't know why some of them are hardback, but read the blurb, see if you like the sound of it. You don't have to read it out loud.
That's all right.
But Neuromancer, okay, that's an interesting one that we've got.
I'll keep that over there.
Oh, you've just stolen my book. Okay.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
I know. I frequently find a book missing from the shelves and it's on Steve's bedside table.
See, this has been the benefit, really, is the fact that I've just gained a whole library of science fiction and fantasy that I can just use whenever I want.
Very lucky.
Great. It's brilliant. So...
Cybernetics and cyborgs were present in sci-fi as early as the 50s, Lynn says. So
yeah, because there was definitely a lot in terms of...
I know that cyberpunk sort of started in the 60s, I feel like it started, because I've read one book by... Because
there was obviously the early Doctor Who sort of getting towards...
Pat Cadigan, I've read Sinners. When was that published?
70s. So no, the first Doctor Who's were in black and white, and they had the Cybermen from the get-go, didn't they? I want to say. I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, so if anyone is and wants to correct me, feel free, because I've probably got that horrendously wrong. But I know the Cybermen were definitely known as a Doctor Who classic.
Oh, wait, no, this is only the 90s. I don't know when cyberpunk began then. I thought that was way before then, but clearly I'm completely
what's this
wrong.
One that's unpronounceable at the bottom of the comments?
Dahlgren. Almost unreadable, but it's a classic. I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to Google that or put it in Goodreads.
Go for it.
Let me have a look.
So...
Dahlgren.
So as in going into cyberspace as a place, if you like, that sort of realm of storytelling.
Dahlgren by Kenneth G. McCollum. I thought that's
only got 10 ratings. That's interesting.
Yeah. Is this the right one? It sounds like it's not got good reviews on Goodreads. It's only got one review, so I don't know. If anyone knows any more about that one, let me know, because I've never heard of it.
I think we're about ready to wrap this up then, aren't you?
Yeah, fairly soon. I think I'll give it another 5 minutes. We haven't finished our Prosecco just yet. We've got a little bit left.
True.
So until we finish it, we'll stay on. We'll just I don't know, answer questions, whatever people want to do.
Because we've got the February pick already. Now, if you want to be a part of choosing the book club pick for future months, March onwards, and being a part of those discussions...
Yeah, you can head on over to my Patreon, which is linked in the description below. And also, I think it's in the cards, or it will be once I upload this video if you're watching it out of live time.
Yeah, for those who aren't watching the stream or just watching it back later on, you can just catch it in the annotations or whatever.
Yeah. So basically, I every month select a couple of books from my shelf or from suggestions that people have given me. And I say, which one should we read? And people do a poll on my Patreon. They also have the chance to see some videos early, some behind the scenes videos, and also just generally kind of chat to me there, because I kind of use it almost as a blog. So
you want to be more involved with the closer sides of the channel in terms of input into how we're doing things, well, you're doing things.
Not how you're doing it.
I say we're doing things. I have no input whatsoever.
Go away.
I have no input whatsoever.
So mine. I'm the one doing the hard work.
I'm just trying to elbow in here and just steal the glory for myself.
No.
But so if you want input into the channel itself and how things are done.
So February's book is Dawn by Octavia Butler. I don't know.
Is it on the shelf?
No, because I've got it on my Kindle. But I have read one other book by Octavia Butler. I read Kindred a couple years ago, maybe a year ago. I really enjoyed her first. Well, that was the first book by her I've read about. I probably wouldn't have told you of it.
I've
Not sure. Anyway, I really enjoy Kindred. It deals a lot with black racial issues in science fiction, and I think that's something we don't see that much because she is a writer of color, and I think hopefully Dawn will include some of that, and also, you know, be a really good read. So I've heard a lot of good things from the people who are subscribed to my Patreon and people who've suggested it. In general, I think she's an author who's really well regarded. So are you going to join me for Dawn?
Yeah, I'll join you for that one.
Good. So Steve will be back. Sorry,
I'll be back.
If you don't like him.
I apologize completely for returning because.
But he'll be back. And I don't know. I
if
hope
you're willing
that
to
in
tolerate
future
me.
months I might be able to get some other booktubers to join in with some stuff. But
yeah,
it really depends what
guests.
we end up kind of choosing as we pick.
Yeah, we'll schedule in the stream for next month, I'm sure, at some point soon.
I mean, it might just be a random, hey guys, I'm doing a stream like today.
Surprise!
Was.
Yes.
But
today's was spontaneous, but we could potentially.
Yeah, anyway.
We'll see.
I'll let you guys know when that comes, but we'll be doing Dawn for Octavia Butler in February. And then I think in March, I may choose some sort of theme, but I would like suggestions on my Patreon for that. So if anyone has any suggestions and is a subscriber on there, then let me know. Because I think we want to do a fantasy book because Dawn is kind of sci-fi as well. And it'd be good to get some fantasy in there too, because obviously I love fantasy. So that will be more my kind of thing. But I think I'll like Dawn. So some other comments we had apparently was Samuel Delaney's Dahlgren. So that's completely not what I found. So
just search for Samuel Delaney.
I will. I've heard of Samuel Delaney, but I haven't read his books. Dahlgren. It hasn't come up with anything. No, I've spelt it wrong. That's the slightly tipsy brain coming out. Still hasn't come up with anything.
Oh, Goodreads. You can't let us down like this.
Goodreads is letting me down. I'm so disappointed. Okay, Samuel Delaney. I mean, he's written a lot, so I don't know where to start. Maybe someone can link me it on Twitter or something. If you can find the book that we're talking about, that would be good. Thanks. Other things that people have been saying. Gibson's a Neuromancer, number 7 Calling. I'm not sure if that is a recommendation of a book.
Maybe.
Alistair says he watched the Doctor in the 60s and 70s, but presumably not since then.
I was a close guess with what I was saying then, I guess.
Maybe.
Because I know Cybermen were a classic for the time.
New Sun by Gene Wolfe. Now, I hated the Gene Wolfe book. Actually, It's my most... It's one of my most disliked videos on my channel. Is
most disliked?
Yeah, most disliked video I've got. I've got that one and Jonathan Strange. They're both very disliked videos.
Oh dear.
And I was not a fan of them at all. Mainly because it's very literary in style. It deals a lot with sort of literary meeting fantasy, and I personally wasn't a big fan. You might like it more than me. Other people definitely like it more than me, but I didn't like it.
I think
groundbreaking at the time. Exactly, it was groundbreaking at the time, but for me, it wasn't a book I enjoyed that much. So, yeah, I only read the first part though. I didn't read the second one, and I think a lot of people said I should have read the second one to get the full story because it's kind of like 4 books in 2 volumes, and you should read them all together. And anyway, I didn't do that. I disobeyed all the rules.
That's for Dahlgren, apparently.
Okay, Dahlgren. We still need to find out about that. I'm curious. So I will write that down so I can.
In terms of my books, because you all know about this one through all the videos.
Yeah.
Know about what you like to read, but I like sci-fi and fantasy that has elements of real-world science. Because my big favourites were the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, and also Mistborn by Sanderson. And I really like those.
You've only read 2 series.
Yeah, but I was a big fan of them because they blended sort of real-world science into fantasy as well. It's like the whole metal system for allomancy in Mistborn I really liked.
It's like taking a real-world magic system or a real-world system, I suppose, and then merging it into magic or merging it into science.
Yeah, and like the use of the Earth with the Broken Earth trilogy and using that as magic, I absolutely loved. I thought it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I really liked, and I'm unsure as to what to move on next. I think I'm going to go with the Demon Cycle.
Yeah, and Hodking. You need to
finish
that
I'm
one up.
listening to Hodking at the moment.
I don't know if anyone else has really read the Demon Cycle in the comments. I love the Demon Cycle, but it's one of those series that, like, there's a lot wrong with it. There's some really rapey stuff that happens in some of the books, and it's got issues, but I love it. It's one of those book series that I think is great. But it's because of how, when I read it, I fell in love with it. It's a character thing, that one, and the world thing. I love
the character building in that was brilliant. Cool. The demons were so descriptive, and there's just so much going on. You can see
them and you're like,
my
God, they're
you
terrifying.
Can imagine all the detail there. Yeah. And that's what I really liked. I only read the first one. Well, listened to. So
Farnum BP, I don't know how to say your name, but I always see you in the comments, so thank you.
Yeah, you're sticking around, which is what I like.
Have you read Belgariad? I haven't yet. It's one of the few series that I haven't actually read. Did I own the first book or not? I can't remember, but I've definitely seen it before by Eddings, and I've not read it. So I think because a lot of people have said that it's very young in tone, and it's kind of a series that a lot of people read as a child or as a teen, and I haven't got to it because of that, because I feel like maybe it won't appeal to me quite as much as some people who read it in their childhood. But if you think it's good, I will add it to my list. It'll be in the never-ending TBR. So
which is
maybe one day.
Most of this shelf and
all of that shelf.
This shelf as well.
No, this shelf is all ones I finished.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I moved all the ones from there, so I've finished all the ones except for those three.
And except for the chocolate that's down there.
Yeah, chocolate is an essential part of reading, don't you know?
Yeah, I've been observant of that. But yeah, so, and I've seen a lot of talk recently as well on both Twitter and Reddit about this list of books up here, which are the Wheel of Time books, and how they're being converted into a TV series on Amazon. Yeah,
I'm going to see what that kind of comes out as, because I've got.
So now they're going to start filming later this year. So obviously that's going to be, they must be committed to it, because they've got to do a lot of series to be able to cover all the books.
I'm intrigued about the Wheel of Time, because some of the books are crap. Like, and I don't say that lightly. Like, I like the Wheel of Time series, but it's the first 5 are fine. Like, they're fine. They're good. Some of them are really good. And then it gets to sort of 6, 7, 8, and 9. And some of them are really boring. Like, really boring. They're fine in terms of, like, the plot moves along, but it's just so trudgy that it's not fun. And I didn't love them. So I'm intrigued about how they're going to do it. They're not something I've
read yet, but I don't know whether I should read them because they're making a series.
I audiobook them. It's the same narrator who does Sanderson's books. So you might like them.
That's
Kramer,
probably better then.
I forget his wife's name. Kate something and Michael Kramer. Kate Redding and Michael Kramer. I think they're married. And they do audiobooks together quite frequently, but Wheel of Time is one they've done together. So it's good.
BP is making a lot of recommendations. I'm liking this.
Spellwright, A Fantasy with Dyslexia is a Theme by Blake Shelton. I've not heard of that one at all, actually. I'm going to look that one up. Spellwright.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Never really heard of one
TBR.
That's got dyslexia.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm wondering how they would, as a theme, what they would do in terms of the writing. I'm interested.
Oh, there you go. It's up here. Okay, I'll take a screenshot of that.
So save that one, definitely.
Save that one. Thank you very much for that recommendation. We will see if we can get hold of that one and go from there. Seems intriguing. I love ones that have, I don't want to say a problem, but some sort of something that holds people back that is a real world issue. Yeah,
there you go. Dyslexia becomes an advantage.
Yeah, I like the way they flip that sometimes.
Making it a positive, and because for those people who
have that condition,
especially those who are younger, who may be in school, of school age, who might be being bullied for that, they would see that story, they would read it and think, actually, this is fine to have. This is great. And
look, the author has dyslexia, so that's something really amazing that he's managed to write that. Or maybe she, because Blake can be female YA. I'm not sure which it is.
That's the great thing, because it's making, especially for if it's a YA for kids and young adult, it's this.
Oh, he is male. Sorry,
Yeah. So that would really just make them feel confident about themselves and just inspire self-confidence and thinking, these kids at school may laugh at me for this, but I don't care. It's cool in this book. It's exactly that. And that is motivational. Yeah, exactly. And I think the sort of stories that give that, especially to people in school age, I think that's something that there needs to be more of, for sure. Definitely. I think that's definitely a good thing.
I think managed to finish my drink. You haven't.
I'm slow coaching over here.
Yeah, you better drink up. So I think we are basically at the end. We're almost at 2 hours. So
we are at 2 hours, so that's probably a good wrap-up point.
Perfect time to end things. But thank you all so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. For those who have stuck around for the whole 2 hours.
You let me finish.
I'm stealing your outro. I'm sorry.
Thank you all so much for coming and joining in with the first book club. I think my plan for later book clubs is to do a similar thing with the live show. I'm not entirely certain how much you guys on the channel will want to watch this after I've gone off from being live, if that makes sense. So it will go on my channel, and I'm going to see what the response from you all is in the comments, and whether you want it to keep being uploaded publicly or whether you would rather it was just unlisted and people from Patreon could come see it if they are interested. I'm going to see what you guys think. So if you have any kind of feedback on whether you want it to continue being on the channel or whether you want it just to be a Patreon thing, then let me know. Thank you, Steve, for coming on. It's only your second appearance on the channel.
My second appearance on the channel.
You were in one video.
I was in one
back.
vlog.
So yeah,
ago.
Vlog.
And I've stuck around, at least.
We live together now. You're stuck with me. So.
We're going up in the world.
Yeah. So I think
hang on. There's another recommendation before we go.
Oh, yeah. On the Edge of Gone. I've read that one. I really liked it. So I definitely agree with that recommendation. Yeah. It's a good one. You should read it, as always. I have this whole shelf next to me where I'm like, you should read everything, Steve. Come on, just read it all. Like everything on here. But anyway. Thank you all so much for watching and joining in and giving us all the recommendations.
It's been great to see you all in the comments. That's brilliant.
And I hope you guys go and read Foundation if you haven't, or let us know what you thought if you have. Thank you all so much, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, guys.